My rootage looks so nice. Look at this. Look at this. I don't know. It just looks so nice to me, in my opinion. Anyways, guys, what is up? It is 2:15 in the afternoon and I am still in my pajamas. I feel like some of the videos I make are like videos that someone who has more subscribers would make, like something that would reach a wider audience. But this is the only idea that I could actually think of at the moment, and I thought it was a good idea, so I'm just gonna roll with it. This is pretty much talking about how I realized that I was a transgender individual. Now, I didn't really learn about being like trans at all until about, I guess, the very, very beginning of it. I think was maybe in 7th or 8th grade when my dad actually said that one of his employees at his work was trans. They're a fellow female to male individual, and they said, yeah, this person's going to have, I think it was like he was either saying that they were going to get top surgery, which is the removal of the chest, or they were going to get the bottom surgery to pretty much change from female reproductive parts to the best of the doctor's ability, to the best of the surgeon's ability, to male parts. And so I was just like, that's possible? And so that was really my first exposure to it, but I never really understood it until about 8th grade or ninth grade. And that was when like stuff with Caitlyn Jenner was coming out. And so when I heard about it, I was just like, oh, okay, so Caitlyn is a transgender individual. And I pretty much did a little research on it just to figure out what it was. And I also started following a bunch of accounts on Instagram, like pro LGBT accounts. And that opened my world to a bunch of different identities, be it sexual orientation, romantic orientation, or gender identity, and not just female to male or male to female. It also introduced me to the non-binary genders, and I thought it was just super cool because it was a bunch of different identities that people like pretty much thought of and realized that they either were this or that one of their friends were, because it opened up other people's eyes to either educate them and help them to be more accepting of others, or to help someone realize who they were. And I guess when I first figured out what transgender was, I was like, okay, I'm still a female. I'm still a cis female. And this stayed the case until about March of 2016. I was still a freshman, and I started slowly but surely not enjoying being called a female. And not because like being a girl is a bad thing, no, not at all. Just like I was uncomfortable with it. Like my brothers would introduce me as their little sister, or my father would introduce me as his daughter, and I would just be like, no. And so I thought maybe at first I was what is called a demigirl, which is I only partially identified as a female. And then around, I think, May of 2016, I was like, no, no, wait, I think it was April. It's like around that time, I thought that I was gender fluid, so I could fluctuate between being a male, female, both, neither, anything else. And that was comfortable for a little while until eventually I remember the exact date, June 1st, 2016, I realized that I was a male. And this was kind of a surprise. Like, I could understand where it might have come from because I was raised in a family of mostly boys. I do have only older brothers. And just random little fun fact, when I was younger, I used to eat a ton of broccoli because it's my favorite vegetable. It still is today. And apparently broccoli increases testosterone in the system, so that might have done something. But but yeah. So yeah, on June 1st, 2016, I realized that I was a dude, and this was kind of a surprise, kind of not. And so I was wondering how I was really gonna go about my life because of this. I'd been talking with my, I guess, ex at the time, and he actually helped me a lot through this. Um, and so around that time, I was actually going to my mother's to visit, and and so I wondered, first of all, who I'm coming out to first, because I didn't know if I should come out to my friends or my family first. I didn't know what would be appropriate, and I eventually settled on my friends because in the case that my family were to reject me, I would have my friends, I would have a safety net to fall back on. So, say, in an extreme case, if I were to get kicked out of my house, I could go to a friend for, like, possibly for shelter for at least a short while. And then, so, I can actually name the few friends that I first came out to. I'm not, like, I can, but I don't really have their permission to name them. But I did come out to a select group of 6 people first. And so, like I told, originally I was gonna go with the male version of my birth middle name, which was Johann. My birth middle name's Johanna. Johann's the male version, and then I started planning coming out to my mom's boyfriend at the time, and to the rest of my family, so my siblings, my dad. And so I decided to come out to my mom, her boyfriend at the time, and my brother Javier, because Javier was visiting at the same time I was. And so what I planned with them was I wrote little notes and I left them on their pillows. And the first person to read it was my mom's boyfriend at the time. And he was pretty chill with it. He actually came into my room after reading it and was like, I knew something like this was gonna happen. He was pretty much, I knew something like this was gonna happen. I'm chill with it. And I was like, okay, sweet. And then I think Javier came home next, but I'm not totally sure. Let's just say he came home next. He didn't even really mention it. So, but he's pretty chill with it. And then my mom came home. Now, before I say this, my mom is completely accepting of me now. Like, she calls me Max, she calls me her son, but at the time, she resisted it. And it's totally understandable why. I was her only daughter. Figuring out that her only daughter was a boy, that's gotta be hard on a parent, especially to someone who has lost a daughter in the past. I did have an older sister, or I could have had an older sister, but she died at the age of 2 months old from sudden infant death syndrome. If she had lived up to my birth, she would have been 11 when I was born. But sadly she did not make it past the age of 2 months. And so that's totally understandable why my mom resisted it at first, because I was her only living daughter, and so having that only living daughter come out as a boy, yeah, that's got to be hard on the mom. And so at first pretty much at first she was like, she resisted it, but now she's fine with it. I feel like I should mention this because this is how I pretty much this is pretty much how, like, I realized I was a boy and not gender fluid. I remember seeing a thing on chest binding on Instagram and, like, doing it safely, and I was just like, I wonder how it would look with a flat chest. And so I took a thing, like, it was like a decorative little thing that's supposed to hang off the side of a bed in order to make the bed look nice. And so I didn't do this tightly, and I don't recommend, like, wrapping something around your chest to flatten it, but I wrapped it very lightly around my chest to make it appear that I had a flat chest. Now, I looked larger than I was, but I liked my appearance more. I pretty much made myself look as much like a dude as possible that night, and I liked my appearance a lot more. I tried for a week calling myself a boy on social media, and I preferred it a lot more than calling myself a girl. And so that's when I was like, oh wow, this is me. I'm not a female, I'm not gender fluid, I'm not a demigirl, I am a full on boy. And then the next few people I came out to were my dad and the rest of my siblings. And so I texted my dad and I was like, hey, this is who I am. And that was pretty much the same thing with my brothers, except I texted them, or at least I texted two of them individually. And I was like, hey, this is who I am. My dad was actually like, I think he like was pretty smart about this. I came out to him and he was like, okay, what pretty much what are you going to do now that this is who you are? Like pretty much how are you going to go about your life now that you've realized that you are a boy? And that's a pretty valuable question. It's like, how am I going to act? How am I going to go about my life now that I have realized that this is me? This is who I am. My brother Vicente was kind of similar, except he didn't ask. He was like, okay, you should sit with this for a while and really figure out what you are going to do now that you figured this out about yourself. My brother Diego told me that I needed to grow a mustache. And I was just like, okay, if I can grow a mustache once I go on hormones, I will grow one. I just realized I didn't mention how my brother Javier reacted. He didn't really mention it. He's pretty chill with it, so. And then with two of my other siblings, Richard and Chris, and all my other friends, I came out on Facebook, and I just wrote a very lengthy post that was pretty much saying, hey guys, I need to tell you something, and then I was like, I'm a boy, this is my new name, this is who I am. Yeah. And everybody that I was friends with, I think accepted it. I didn't really notice me losing any friends, and if I did, then they were just people that I was friends with back in like 7th grade or something. But, they don't really matter much anymore, because even though I now live in Iowa again, I don't even go to the same school that I went to when I was in 7th grade. And so yeah, that's pretty much my figuring out who I was as a trans individual and coming out as a trans individual. That's my story about it. Wow, I'm really bad at this. Now, I was pretty lucky with coming out. When I did, I was accepted by pretty much all my friends. I don't think there was anybody that even really rejected me that I was friends with based off of who I was, and my family accepted me as well. But that's not always the case. If you are out there, if you are watching this, and your family isn't as accepting, like they won't be as accepting, it might be safer to just stay in the closet until you are in a place where you could come out to them and you would be safe. Like say if you are a teenager and you're trans and your parents are also very if your parents aren't accepting of the transgender community, you might not want to come out, because if they do end up kicking you out or doing something else to you, such as hurting you in any way, if you think that they will, then you should probably, I know this might sound a little weird, but you probably should just stay in the closet, because if you do get kicked out of your home, it could just get worse. It could just pretty much get worse from there. If you get kicked out of your home, there's a very real chance you could end up dying on the street, and you still have a life to live. So, if you are out there and you're watching this and you just need a way to come out to your friends and your family, I hope this I hope this helps. I hope this helps you in a way to come out to the people that you care for the most. And yeah, hopefully I'll see most of you in the next video.